Welcome to Communicate to Lead, the podcast that empowers leaders and aspiring leaders to communicate with clarity and impact. I'm Kele Belton, CEO and successful entrepreneur, and your host for today. I'm here to equip you with all the essential tools and strategies to master effective communication and lead your team to success. As the founder and CEO of The Tailored Approach, my goal is to empower you to be the best leader you can be. So sit back, relax, and join me in today's episode as we dive into the art of communicating like a true leader. What makes a leader truly effective behind the closed doors of tough decisions and challenging conversations? Today's episode pulls back the curtain on my personal journey as a leadership and communication coach and facilitator. Welcome back to Communicate to Lead. I am your host, Kele Belton. I've been looking forward to this special episode for quite some time. Instead of our usual format, I'll be answering questions that you've sent in about everything from my South African roots to my coaching philosophy. You'll discover the authentic experiences that have shaped who I am as a leader and a communicator, along with practical insights you can apply to your leadership journey. This is where you'll learn not only what I teach, but why I teach it and how I live it in my daily practice. What I love about these questions is that they recognize what I believe deeply. Effective leadership and powerful communication are inseparable. The best leaders know that communication isn't just a tool they use, it's the primary way they build trust, inspire action, and create the conditions for their teams to thrive. Thank you so much for submitting these thoughtful questions. They reflect exactly what I hope this podcast achieves, creating a conversation about leadership and communication that feels personal, actionable, and authentic. So grab your favorite beverage, find a comfortable spot, and let's dive into your questions. I promise to be candid, share some stories I've never told before, and offer leadership strategies you can implement right away. Let's start with questions about my journey into coaching and leadership development. So here's question 1. How long have you been in coaching? I've been coaching since 2008, so that's about 15 years now. What's fascinating about the journey is how much my approach has evolved over time. When I first started, I was focused primarily on the tactical elements of communication, helping professionals structure presentations or prepare for difficult conversations. But as I gained more experience and worked with diverse clients, I realized that effective communication isn't simply about tactics. It's about the whole person. Now my coaching integrates identity, values, and purpose into the communication development process. Each person's communication style is unique to them, and my role is to help them find their authentic voice rather than imposing a single correct approach. Those 15 years have taught me that the best coaching happens when I'm truly present with my client, asking questions that they may not have even thought to ask themselves. So it's less about having all the answers and more about creating the space for discovery. Question 2. What tips would you give to someone who wants to get into coaching? This is such a great question. If you're considering coaching as a profession, here's what I'd recommend based on my leadership development experience. First, invest in your own development. Before you can effectively coach others on their leadership journey, you need to understand yourself, including your strengths, your triggers, and areas of growth. I spent several years working with my own coach before I felt ready to guide others in their leadership development. This personal work helps you model the vulnerability and growth mindset that effective leadership requires. Second, get proper training that integrates both communication and leadership principles. Coaching isn't simply about giving advice. It's about asking powerful questions that help leaders discover their own authentic style. Look for ICF accredited programs that provide supervised practice and address the full spectrum of leadership development, from interpersonal dynamics to strategic thinking. Third, develop your unique approach to leadership coaching. The coaching industry is diverse, and what sets successful leadership coaches apart is their authentic perspective. For me, integrating communication expertise with leadership development helped me find my niche. I noticed how many phenomenal leaders were held back not by their ideas or vision, but by their inability to communicate that vision effectively to others. This intersection became the foundation for my coaching practice. Finally, start practicing with real leaders as soon as possible. Theory only takes you so far. The real learning happens in conversation with people navigating actual leadership challenges. Offer pro bono sessions to emerging leaders who genuinely show an interest in growth. These early experiences will help you refine your coaching style and build confidence in your ability to create transformation. So here's question 3. If you weren't coaching for a living, what would you be doing? If I weren't coaching, I'd probably still be facilitating workshops and empowering others with their leadership skills and communication skills. Teaching and empowering others is something I've been doing for over 20 years now. And honestly, I can't imagine doing something else. There's something magical about creating a space where people can safely practice new skills, receive feedback, and experience those aha moments in real time. Workshop facilitation offers that collective energy that one-on-one coaching sometimes doesn't have. There's something wonderful about watching ideas build and bounce between participants, creating natural forward movement as people inspire each other. But if we're talking about a completely different life path, well, I sometimes joke that in my next lifetime, I might just pour wine at a winery. There's an art to helping people discover what they enjoy, to creating moments of connection and pleasure around shared experiences. Come to think of it, maybe that's not so different from coaching after all, just with more immediate sensory rewards. What coaching, facilitation, and yes, even wine pouring shares that fundamental human connection. It's about meeting people where they are, understanding what they're looking for, and helping guide them toward an experience that enriches them in some way. Whether that's through developing leadership skills or finding the perfect Chardonnay or Cab, it's all about creating moments of meaningful connection. So let's move on to some questions about leadership identity and how our personal backgrounds influence our leadership styles. This is something I'm particularly passionate about because authentic leadership doesn't come from imitating other people. It comes from deeply understanding and leveraging your unique strengths and lived experiences. So here's question 4. Which single aspect of communication is most important for new leaders? If I had to choose one communication element for new leaders to master, it would be active listening. Here's why this is the cornerstone of leadership communication. When you are new to leadership, there's often pressure to prove yourself by speaking up, sharing ideas, and directing others. But surprisingly, your leadership influence grows when you first seek to understand before being understood. Active listening isn't passive. It's a strategic leadership skill. It means putting aside your mental preparation for what you'll say next and instead be fully present with the person speaking. It means asking clarifying questions and reflecting back what you've heard to confirm that you understood them. Most importantly, it means creating psychological safety where team members feel their contributions are valued. Strong leaders who listen well gain 3 critical advantages. First, they make better decisions because they have more complete information. Second, they build deeper trust with their teams because people feel respected and heard. And third, they create cultures of innovation where diverse perspectives can flourish. I've coached countless emerging leaders who transformed their effectiveness simply by improving their listening skills. One client was facing high turnover on her team and struggling to implement change initiatives. When we worked together on her listening skills, she discovered underlying concerns and great ideas that had been invisible to her. And within 3 months of addressing those concerns and incorporating her team's insights, retention improved by 20%. And her change initiative gained momentum because people felt a sense of ownership in the process. For new leaders, especially, listening well builds the relational foundation that makes all other leadership functions possible. Master active listening first, and you'll find that your vision, strategic direction, and feedback all land more effectively because they are informed by genuinely understanding your team and their reality. Question 5. How do you draw on your identity to be a better leader? My identity shapes my leadership in profound ways, particularly three key aspects of who I am. First, I'm an introvert. Might be surprised, but I am, which might seem counterintuitive for someone who teaches communication skills. But being an introvert has given me valuable leadership strengths. I'm naturally observant, noticing subtle dynamics that might be missed in group settings. I listen deeply before speaking, which helps me respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. I've learned to honor the need for reflection time, both for myself and the people I lead. In a world that often prizes or puts a lot of attention on extroversion, I try to model how introversion can be a leadership asset rather than something to overcome. Second, I take genuine joy in helping others achieve their goals. This has been at the center of my sense of purpose. In leadership terms, this means I derive satisfaction not from personal recognition, but from seeing the people I work with succeed and grow. It keeps my ego in check and ensures I maintain a service mindset in my leadership approach. Third, family and community are deeply important to me. This core value influences how I lead by prompting me to create a sense of community for my clients and colleagues. I aim to cultivate environments where people feel they belong and are supported, even as they are challenged to grow. I'm their biggest cheerleader and hold them accountable to their biggest dreams and goals. These elements of my identity, being an introvert who finds fulfillment in other success and values community, come together to form a leadership style that's focused on authentic connection, thoughtful observation, and creating spaces where others can thrive. Our identities are inseparable from our leadership. They are the very foundation of how we show up as leaders. So here's a follow-up question to the previous one. Is there anything from South African culture that you draw on to make you a better communicator? Oh my gosh, absolutely. Two elements of South African culture have a profound impact on my communication approach. First, we have 11 official languages in South Africa, and actually make that 12 when you count South African Sign Language. Growing up in a linguistically diverse environment taught me that effective communication goes far beyond words alone. I learned to pay attention to tone, body language, and cultural context. This awareness helps me notice subtleties in communication that might otherwise go undetected, which is invaluable when coaching leaders who need to connect across different backgrounds, experiences, and cultures. Second, and perhaps most importantly, I bring the spirit of Ubuntu with me to work. Ubuntu is often translated as I am because we are. It's the recognition that our humanity is deeply connected to each other's humanity. And this philosophy shapes how I use language and communication to connect with my clients, colleagues, family, friends, and everyone else. In practical terms, Ubuntu means I approach every conversation with the assumption that we have something valuable to learn from each other. It means using communication not only to exchange information, but to build a genuine human connection. This perspective transforms even difficult conversations, and we have so many of those, into opportunities for deeper understanding and growth. Here's question 6. Who are 3 of the most influential leaders in your life? This one I had to really sit and think about because there are so many incredible leaders over the years that I have encountered, that I've worked with, that I've admired. But the 3 most influential leaders in my life represent different aspects of leadership that I strive to embody in my own work. First is Nelson Mandela. For his incredible spirit of tenacity and forgiveness. What strikes me most about Mandela was his ability to emerge from 27 years of imprisonment without bitterness, instead choosing reconciliation over revenge. His leadership taught me that true strength lies in the capacity to transform pain into purpose. In my coaching, I often draw on his example when helping clients navigate challenging transitions or conflicts. The second influential leader is a dear friend I worked with at Stellenbosch, Benita van Zyl. Benita is incredible. She embodies what I consider everyday leadership excellence. She's kind, compassionate, and never shies away from a difficult conversation. What makes her exceptional is how she manages to have those challenging conversations with such authenticity and kindness. From Benita, I learned that compassion and accountability are not opposing forces. They are complementary aspects of truly effective leadership. Finally, my mom has been a profound influence on my leadership. Now retired, she worked her way up from being a cleaner at a gym to becoming the financial controller at one of the top gyms in Namibia and South Africa. She was fair and supportive of her team and had no problem sharing her opinions, even when they were unpopular. And to this day, she still does that. Her journey taught me that leadership isn't about your title or where you started. It's about your integrity, your work ethic, and how you treat people along the way. These three incredible leaders, ranging from a global icon to a personal mentor to a family member, have shaped my understanding that great leadership manifests at every level and in every context of our lives. Now, let's talk about some questions related to personal growth and how we maintain our well-being as leaders. So here's question 7. What do you do when you feel like your mind is foggy and you don't have the clarity to deal with other people, let alone your own thoughts? I love this question because it acknowledges something every leader experiences but rarely talks about publicly. Mental clarity is essential for effective leadership, yet we all have periods where that clarity is not quite there. Mental fog is something I've learned to respect rather than fight. When I notice that cloudy feeling setting in, I see it as a signal that something needs attention in my life or in my leadership practice, not as a failure of leadership itself. And my go-to practice is what I call input fasting and output slowing. This means I temporarily reduce information consumption. I try to take in less information, no news, no social media, or even leadership books, and slowing down production expectations. Practically, I'll block 90 minutes for focus work that would normally take me 60 minutes, giving myself permission to move at a deliberate, slower pace. And this creates the mental space that clarity requires. Physical movement is a non-negotiable for me during these times. Even a 15-minute walk can reset my nervous system and create mental clarity. I find that rhythmic activities like walking or stretching create a meditative state where leadership solutions often emerge naturally. Some of my best strategic insights have come during these movement breaks, not while staring at a screen. And finally, I've learned to adjust my leadership communication style during foggy periods. I might tell a client or a team member or a stakeholder, hey, I need to sit with this question before responding. Or could we revisit this tomorrow when I can give it my full attention? This transparency actually builds leadership credibility rather than undermining it. And it shows thoughtful decision making. When things get foggy, treat it as a sign of your current leadership state, not a character flaw. It doesn't define you. It's something that's simply happening and it'll disappear. It'll move along. The best leaders know when to push forward and when to create space for their clarity to return. And here's question 8. What communication elements are you currently working on? Gosh, what am I not working on? That's the thing about communication. It's an endless journey of refinement and growth. Currently, I'm focused on 3 main areas. First is deepening my active listening skills. Even after years of coaching, I still catch myself occasionally formulating my next question before my client has finished speaking. True active listening requires a kind of presence that needs constant cultivation, like a muscle that must be regularly exercised. Second, I'm working on asking more insightful questions. The right question at the right time can create a breakthrough, but it requires really tuning into what's beneath the surface of a conversation. And I'm constantly studying the art of powerful questioning, not simply what to ask, but when and how to ask it. And finally, I'm practicing asking more directly for what I need. A good friend of mine who's also an entrepreneur and a coach She models it so well. And thanks to her, I've made that something that I want to practice in 2025 because this is something many of us, especially women, struggle with. We're socialized to prioritize harmony and others' comfort, sometimes at the expense of clarity or ourselves. I'm learning that clear requests actually strengthen relationships rather than straining them because they eliminate the guesswork for other people. And the irony isn't lost on me that as a communication coach, I'm perpetually working on my own communication. But that's precisely what makes this work so rich and rewarding. We're never truly finished growing in how we connect with others. Question 9. Has starting a podcast made you a better leader? How so? Well, starting this podcast has absolutely transformed aspects of my leadership, though not always in ways I expected. First, it's made me a more disciplined communicator as a leader. When you know your words will be heard by many, you become more intentional about your message. I find myself asking, what's the one leadership insight I want listeners to remember? This has carried over into how I lead meetings, workshops, and coaching sessions. This clarity of purpose is something I now coach other leaders to develop in their own communication. And this is something I coached a couple of my clients just today. Second, it's humbled me tremendously as a leadership guide. The feedback from listeners, both positive and constructive, has reminded me that leadership communication is ultimately about impact, not intent. I've had to develop greater openness to different perspectives, which has enhanced my ability to coach leaders through messy human aspects of organizational life. Perhaps something even more important, hosting this podcast has expanded my network of leadership thought partners. Interviewing incredible, diverse leaders has exposed me to approaches I might never have encountered otherwise. These conversations challenge my assumptions about effective leadership and prevent the echo chamber that can happen when we only engage with like-minded people who tell us what we want to hear or what we're used to. My podcast has also reinforced a core leadership principle. Leadership is not about having all the answers. In preparation for interviews, I've learned to be comfortable with not knowing everything and to asking questions that encourage exploration rather than demonstrating expertise. This curiosity-based approach has made my leadership coaching more effective because I'm truly listening for discovery rather than confirmation of what I already believe or know. So yes, podcasting has made me a better leader by making me more intentional, more open to feedback, and more intellectually curious. These qualities have directly transferred to how I coach other leaders to develop their own authentic leadership style. And here's question 10. What are your favorite hobbies? Is there anything you have learned about communication or leadership from doing those hobbies? Well, I have to be honest, I don't have an extensive list of hobbies. As a business owner, a mom, a wife, my time is precious and limited, as I'm sure yours is as well. But the few hobbies that I do have, I cherish, and they are reading, listening to podcasts, and taking walks in my neighborhood. These simple activities have actually taught me profound lessons about leadership and communication. Reading has reinforced what might be the most important leadership principle of all. Never stop learning. Every book offers a new perspective, a different approach for solving a problem, or insight into human behavior. It's a humbling reminder that no matter how much expertise we develop, there's always more to discover. And this mindset of perpetually learning keeps me curious and open as a coach and a leader. Listening to podcasts, yes, other people's podcasts, has taught me about the power of diverse voices in storytelling. I pay attention not only to the content, but also to the delivery, how hosts create connections, navigate difficult conversations, and structure complex ideas for clarity. It's like a masterclass in communication techniques that I can adapt for my own work. So I encourage you, if you don't listen to podcasts beyond this podcast, try some podcasts out and you'll be surprised at how much you learn. And then finally, my neighborhood walks, well, they've taught me about the value of rhythmic movement for processing thoughts and generating ideas. I have solved some of my most challenging coaching situations and developed more workshop concepts during these walks and at my desk. They're a reminder that leadership isn't only about doing, it's about creating space for reflection. And this is a lesson I learned in my mid-20s from a former boss and mentor, Leon de Stadler. What's beautiful is how these three simple activities complement each other. Reading fills my mind with new ideas. Podcasts expose me to diverse perspectives. And walking gives me the space to integrate it all. The leadership lesson here is about creating positive patterns of input, processing, and application, which is ultimately what great leadership development is all about. And that's a wrap for today's episode, my friend. Thank you for these thoughtful questions about leadership and communication. I've enjoyed this opportunity to share more of my personal journey and insights with you. What strikes me as I reflect on these questions is how intertwined leadership and communication truly are. The most effective leaders I've worked with and the ones I've mentioned today, such as Nelson Mandela and my mother, understood that leadership isn't just about position or authority. It's about how you connect with others, how you listen, how you articulate your vision, and how you create spaces where others can thrive. This is why I'm so passionate about helping leaders develop their communication skills. Because when you enhance how you communicate, you automatically enhance how you lead. The clarity, presence, and authenticity that make communication powerful are the same qualities that make leadership transformative. If you have any questions about leadership or communication that you'd like me to address in future episodes, please send them my way. You can send me a direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or send me an email. You can find all my contact details in the show notes. Next week, we'll return to our regular format where I'll share insights on building strategic relationships in a time when trust is low. We'll explore practical approaches to establishing authentic connections in today's challenging environment. Until next Thursday, my friends, I am Kele, reminding you that great communication is the foundation of inspiring leadership. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember to communicate to lead.